बचपन में सबको क्या सिखाते जाके कंज्यूमर स्टडी करो ना एक बार. Why don't people just go and talk to consumers, one? At least like they should ask, what do you want in a game? And people are like, I want a good game. And then
Exactly.
rendering to be on decentralized, they'll be like, WTF, like,
What is that?
So today is a very sad episode, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone who's tuning into Web3 Normies. You have confirmed that Arsenal has lost their title charge, and Prashant here very enthusiastically flew away to London to be able to potentially see Arsenal winning the trophy. Prashant, how does it feel? Tell us all about it.
Yeah, there was a reason I revealed that before you started recording, okay? So that we would not have to go through that again. But yeah, what can I say? At least the weather is slightly better than what I'm used to here. So at least that keeps me going. But yeah, man, I mean, as Aakash would testify, you know, I should not have made this mistake given how long I've been a fan. I did it nevertheless. And here we are.
every Gooner knows you shouldn't raise your hopes too high. Let it happen. If it happens, it happens.
For the audio-only listeners on the other side, that is Aakash Kumar. He's from Matrix Venture Partners. He is super knowledgeable when it comes to games. He's been a builder himself, done a bunch of cool things in Web 2, has dabbled in Web 3 as well, and speaks a lot about AI, which we will get to in a bit. But Aakash, first and foremost, most important question, how does it feel being a Gooner today?
Not too different. It's been the same for more than a decade now, so it's okay.
I don't know what you guys are sulking about, man. Like, come on. If somebody told me we'll get second place at the beginning of the season, I'd take it.
Exactly, that's my point.
Oh yeah.
Good. It's good.
So
Definitely.
Really interesting entry into investing as such. A little bit of background about the cool stuff that you've done in your startup life. And then your foray into VC would be really, really awesome to hear. I have heard this story in the multiple places that we might have hung out, but it'll be really cool to hear that from you as well. So take it away, Aakash. Give the listeners a glimpse into who you are and what got you to the place you're at right now.
No, I think super excited to be doing this. Quick, I'll keep it short as it can be. Life started very early, obviously, as a engineering undergrad, typical journey, Indian student, middle class family. You go to your JEE, join IIT Bombay. I think somewhere in my early days itself, I was super clear that I want to be part of this startup venture ecosystem. So started a first venture in 2009 while I was still in my undergrad. Started building like a recruitment classifieds for people who were still on campus. So there was this big company called InfoEdge, which had built Naukri.com.
Yeah.
Was inspired by what they did, but thought the platform was not suited for people just coming out of colleges. So we went about doing that. And yeah, that was it. That was just the start. And then it just kept on cascading. I did that, realized not a huge market to go after, had my first set of interactions with venture capitalists that time. This was early days of venture capital in India. I think Matrix, where I am now, was set up in India in 2006, right? So just contextualize how early days it was. And yeah, then gaming used to be a passion. So we went down that path. So sold off the IP that we did in the classifieds one, set up a gaming company. Big audacious goal to build the biggest game from India for the world. That was the aim and ambition. Didn't know much about how to build games. Learned it, and then we started cranking away at it, built that. Started as a servicing body shop, became a product company, raised some money somehow. Learned the hard way that was the time I learned my first lesson properly of saying product is as important as distribution, or rather distribution is as important as product. Because we were a good profitable outfit when we were doing servicing, but the moment we decided to do it ourselves as a publisher, that was the death of the business.
Right.
And yeah, but that was a lot of good lessons on building games, right? I think all that I learned about product management came from that. And again, I had a lot of VC interactions. And I think somewhere around that point of time, I just felt that, hey, you know what? I think being a investor is probably what I'm better suited for. I should learn how to be a good investor. And the path I chose was slightly different. And I think that's a question a lot of my friends also ask me. People who want to get into venture capital ask me. My path was very different. It was a deliberate choice made way back in 2011 to say that, hey, I need to do this, and what would be the right way to become a venture capitalist, right? And in my books, it was, you need to have understood how a 0 to 1 happens, right? You need to have had a good flavor of doing a 1 to 10, and you need to have gone down the path of doing a 10 to 100 also, right? Something where you do a full scale up. And once you've seen that entire journey, is when one becomes actually well equipped to be a venture capitalist. And it's not an only path. You have great examples of VCs who have never been operators, so that's perfectly fine. But that's the choice I made, and then that was it. Did that. So consciously started doing individual angel investing in 2013 in parallel while being an operator. And as an operator, did housing.com, which is a good 0 to 1, and then a 1 to -10. Which is unique, so people don't know what that is also about.
I was there.
Then did a company called IndusOS as the chief product officer, which finally got exited to Samsung, and then PhonePe. And Hotstar, right? 4.5 years at Hotstar. Was fortunate to be a part of the journey from roughly very early days, double-digit million US top line to almost $500 million US top line, right? And was fortunate to get the chance to helm that as the head of growth across both the ads and the subscription business. And parallelly, the individual investing was also helping me form my own mental models, muscle around saying, how do you pick at early stage? How do you go about it? And yeah, 2021 end, I was like, great, all parts are done. Now it's time to full-time switch over. And then I switched over. So that's broadly my journey. So yeah, slightly deliberate on the choice of being in venture.
That's so crazy, man. Like, you took the long route. If you had done an MBA also, it would have been shorter than doing all of this, you know.
Dude, is that a taunt on me or what?
I'm just saying, bro, it's an observation. So, but Aakash, like, if you had to probably say one major difference between the 0 to 1, 1 to 10, and 10 to 100 phases, what would you say that is?
I can actually put like key terms to it, and we can talk about it. We can double click. See, 0 to 1 is a lot of hustle, right? So as a founder, the 0 to 1 is where the founder is just trying to turn something out of nothing, right? So it's majorly a hustle, right? With some thought. 1 to 10 becomes a more deliberate journey of being more thoughtful and turning that hustle into a repeatable thing, which is done by building a team, by ensuring that different teams are equipped, by making design choices of how you would want to do your org, right? So it's more about thoughtful and repeatability. Like, if you had to think of keywords for that, 10 to 100 is a very, very unique journey, right? And which is where the biggest make or break for a lot of companies happens. 10 to 100 predominantly is about everything, right? It is more about saying that, hey, I need to have product market fit. I need to have figured out thoughtfully, built an org, built a team, and I need to now repeat those everything that I did across 0 to 1 and 1 to 10. Can I keep ensuring that whatever you have built as a founder, I can keep adding more and more and more of that, right? It's never just a linear of what you did in the 1 to 10, right? You have to almost repeat in a shorter timeline. You have to almost start spawning newer 0 to 1s, 1 to 10s, 0 to 1, 1 to 10s within the org, right? And which is what makes it very difficult, right? A lot of people think that, hey, and in SaaS, it's like, I'll take an analogy from software as a service, right? In SaaS, it's more established, where people know that your first is this, but then the revenue ramp, the inflection is not just this inflex. You keep layering, you keep layering, you keep layering, right? That's how you keep growing the business, right? So 10 to 100 is a very, very unique thing. And I would say very few companies and founders get the privilege to, get to that, because first you need to cross the 1 to 10. And then very few are able to bridge over to 10 to 100. And sometimes it's fine. And some of the best founders have been conscious to say, I can't do the 10 to 100, right? Even if you look at someone like a Google, right? Larry and Sergey, they just brought in Eric so early for doing exactly that, right? Maybe every founder is not meant to be a CEO, right? I think founders and CEO are two different things. 10 to 100 is a CEO's role.
Thank you for kind of elucidating that. And I was going to ask you more of a personal question, because you answered my planned subsequent question. Is that where do you see yourself fit best in as a founder, not with your VC hat on? Is it in 0 to 1, 1 to 10, or 10 to 100?
Yeah, I think my own introspection of why I chose that I don't want to be a founder again was that I think I used to struggle with the 1 to 10, right? I used to be able to do the 0 to 1 very well. But then the 1 to 10 I used to struggle. And both the startups that I did, I felt that. And now, thanks to experience, thanks to stuff done across multiple orgs, especially at Hotstar, I think 10 to 100 has again become a strong suit. But yeah, I think even today, if you ask me that, what's the right way to do the 1 to 10, except for saying hire well, I don't have an answer. Right? I don't have an answer. And I do think it's 80-20. It's 80% hire well. Broadly, the answer is that 80% of it is hire well. The founder's job is to do the last 20, right? And I think I didn't do justice to that.
It's thank you for that candor, man. I really feel like that's such a, it's nice to hear honesty like that. And, and speaking of honesty, we were all at this crypto meetup. Okay. I think it was a demo day that we had done, and Aakash was there. And I think some of the boys at Builders Tribe, and some more people were around a table, and we were talking about how some things centralized is better, right? And the example that we took was alchemy. And when we said alchemy was this and that, and no decentralized player comes close, we heard this voice from the side that said, "Hey, no man, QuickNode is also not that bad." Okay? And then we turned around and saw it was Aakash. That's what we wanted to. So kind of on the back of that story, how did crypto happen for you? When exactly?
Crypto happened very early, 2013. So crypto happened, crypto, the way we know crypto happened now. So actually cryptography or a lot of this stuff happened very early. So I started coding when I was in class 5 or 6. Right. And since then, even though my major at IIT was metallurgical engineering, I think my passion has always been comp science. And because of that, for me, I would always tinker with code. I still tinker with code. And cryptography was something I was always obsessed about. I think it was in the second year when I was trying to actually write a new cryptography tool. And I sucked at it, but I was trying.
I was just going to ask, how did that go?
So sometimes you realize that you can be obsessed and you can be a decent coder, but unless and until you learn comp science, you can't crack some problems.
Yeah.
I think that was that. So that's how I always got obsessed. And I think when 2009 the paper came out, I was like, wow, this is mind blowing. But that's the time when I was trying to do all my 0 to 1s. So never got to it. 2013 is when finally got some downtime-ish of sorts, right? This is around the time when I was just winding down my gaming company. And the beauty was serendipity. We had a lot of high-powered GPU machines at the gaming company, and which was and my younger brother became the inspiration, who said, "This is great for doing Bitcoin mining." So that's how my crypto journey started. So start was that, and then it just kept on. It was just insane. Early 17, late 17, got super inspired by EVM, smart contracts, tinkered around, got a good hang of what how powerful it could be. And I think by 17, 18, I also got into a point where even my Web2 individual investing had become like a flywheel. Had backed a lot of companies by then. So yeah, around 17, 18, I just went on a spree. I decided this is it. I know where this is going, and I'm going to back the most dumbest things as per me, which were like super dumb. Which like no brainer. I will back RPC node. Done. No brainer. Proof of stake. I will back every component of proof of stake. Right. So it could be SSV, which was shared validator. Then in India later, Amit started Stader. Like proof of stake is a dumb answer. Like it has to happen. If this thing goes up, I don't know. It's almost like how we were joking. Recently, people are saying AI, right? I said I have been loading up on. I think my AI investing strategy is singular. Buy Nvidia, right?
Not render.
That's actually very fair.
Buy Nvidia. Everything else is anyone's guess. You can be intuitive. You can be thoughtful about it. High chance you'll get it wrong or right. Like it's not. You can't be dead accurate on anything else, right? Base layers, you can always be accurate, right? If you think the trend line is secular, playing the base layer is never goes wrong, right? So for me, that is broadly how crypto started, and then obviously got deeper, trying to think through what could be upper layers of the stack, which could be playable, which I still think maybe will play out, maybe might not play out in terms of the investments I made, because those are always like that. That's the nature of those businesses, right? You can never be 100% sure on those. But base layers, you can always be sure. It's like saying that when on-prem to cloud happened, it's no-brainer. Just bet on the cloud. You don't bet against a secular trend.
Right. That's really cool. I just realized I was such a normie right now when he said that now that AI is happening, the first thing my mind went to was render. And he's like, Nvidia, dude. I was like, oh yeah, actually. Yeah, that made a lot of sense. Prash, I bet you have some Web3 questions for Aakash as well. Go for it.
Yeah, I'll come to that just before that. Aakash, so at Matrix, what all verticals do you look at?
Yeah, so as Matrix, we are obviously very vertically structured, actually. So that's one thing unique about us as an early stage fund. So we do have purely dedicated verticals. I look after broadly gaming, media, social, which is again given all the life experiences of having built in that domain. Crypto, Web3, blockchain, and a lot more work on frontier sectors, so which is new sectors which will start emerging now. And it's not that they'll start emerging, new sectors which we think will see company creation coming from India now, right? So if you think of sectors which are, let's say, drug discovery, and there's so many, like there's no shortage of those, right? And yeah, so that's broadly what I do. And and again, it's almost like, even though I do crypto Web3, see, crypto Web3 is a horizontal, it's not a vertical, right? If you really take a first principle view, it's a horizontal, and then you have to say, how does it play into the same old world of fintech, right? How does it play almost into the same old world of B2B software and tooling, right? So we do think that, and AI is also similar in that way. It's a horizontal, it's not a vertical. So however, in crypto Web3, because there is this unique element of financialization, which is very unique to companies which are created there, hence we do still think of it as a vertical, but we tag team, right? So if we have to make an investment in, let's say, institutional digital assets, it would be a tag team between me and the fintech team, right? So similarly then, and once we figured out that there is this horizontal vertical intersection, even with AI, I do that horizontal tag teaming with everyone.
Okay, no, that's interesting, and I think it makes a lot of sense to kind of segment it that way. I think a lot of Web2 funds is how I like to call it, have gone through a certain evolution and have kind of do this vertical categorization better in a way, right? In fact, in Web3, I think last cycle we could do all crypto in one basket, but now I think in the next cycle, we'll also start splitting this out now, right? We'll have like when you do media and gaming, I think that will probably have Web2 and Web3 to it. Similarly, you do fintech, it will have like Web2 and Web3 to it. I think that's pretty much how this will progress.
And
Anyway,
if you remember, we were talking, was in Dubai or Singapore when we met. It's almost, so what happened in the last 2-3 years? People saying we are a crypto fund, or people saying we are crypto team, right? It almost reminded me of the early days of iPhone, right? And Avnish, who's the founder and MD of Matrix India, him and I would joke multiple times. He would say there was a point of time. It feels so funny that if you look back, there was a point of time there used to be a team for web investing and mobile investing separately, right? But I kid you not, as investors,
I know that.
as ecosystem participants, right? We tend to do this. We tend to do this every time. But hey, at the end, sectors will always remain sectors, right?
Yeah.
Finance will remain finance. Now, how you do it could be Web 2, 2.5, 3, whatever you want to call it, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's heartening to hear that even now you guys are saying that you will also take that cross-section view.
I come from like a very
wait.
No, Raghu may not agree to this at all.
Traditional Web2 VC and a Web3 VC, and there is no confrontation over here. You guys can't just agree with each other like this, man. Like, I was like, go to pick up popcorn and all. You guys just seem to like, this is not.
Yeah,
fun.
man. I just try to find the path of least resistance and not judge. That's pretty.
Was that a shot?
So you use a lot of buzzwords here, right? So there is Web3, there is gaming, there is AI. What I found very interesting whenever I spoke with you is that when we look at gaming in Web3, right, there is a lot of euphoria around, hey, gaming is where billion users will come in, and we need to decentralize the entire gaming landscape, remove the reliance on your app stores, remove the reliance on your publishers, we'll just decentralize the entire stack. And to listen, it sounds very good, right? But I do feel like a lot of people who propose these things in crypto, in Web3, have not really gone through the journey of like how a game gets built, or like, how the game economies also work. And which is where I thought you had like a lot of great insights to share whenever we have spoken, right? So maybe I can just like start with like a very controversial question, right? Do you believe in Web3 gaming? And what does Web3 gaming exactly mean to you?
So, okay. I'll start with the second one. What does Web3 gaming mean? And then I'll come to the first question. For me, what Web3 gaming means, how can you use the constructs of tokenization, public ledgers, and open exchanges for improving the gaming business? That's how I think, right?
Clarification. Gaming business, not the gameplay itself.
Gaming business is constituted of
so all encompassing.
But at the end, it's how you think of it, improving the gaming business. Now, are there avenues where it unlocks certain value? Yes. And when I say it, I mean, if you break it down, right, you say that, hey, there is a construct of tokenization, there is a construct of open flow of an exchange of assets. Does it unlock value for gaming? Yes. Like you go as back as 2009, World of Warcraft used to do about $6.5 million a day in revenue, right? The gray market of their asset economy on eBay and others was pegged at 2x of that, right? Now, imagine if I am the game maker, I would love to have, and that economy exists because I've made the game, right? I would love to have a part of that, right? So that's like a no-brainer. So the second question that you asked, Web3 gaming, for me, Web3 gaming is that, right? It's about saying, can you improve the business of games? And see, sometimes people think business and consumers are at conflict. And I always go back to, there's this unique video, I can't recollect where, of Bezos, and someone asked him that, hey, who's your biggest stakeholder? And he said, my biggest stakeholder is my customers, right? At the end, my customer NPS is the biggest measure of how good a business am I building. So I don't think they're at conflict. So if it results in making better gameplay, it would, if it can, right? Now I'll come back to, do I believe in Web3 gaming? Uh, no, because of all the things the way it is treated today, right? Now, people will talk about, and there was a point of time when people were talking about play to earn, and it was so heartening last month when I was in New York, and everyone was there, Immutable founder, Polygon folks, everyone, and I asked them what's happening with play to earn. I finally felt happy that at least the ecosystem, they said there is no play to earn, there shouldn't be. I'm like, I've been telling you that from day zero, right? From the day you first ever came up with that term. Because if I go back to my days as a game entrepreneur, or even as a gamer, I'm a hardcore gamer, I still game a lot, right? And I love designing games. Games, the core challenge of a gaming entrepreneur or gaming product designer always used to be, it is the most difficult product to build, because every other product you can deconstruct. You can do a customer interview, you can think of a need gap, you can think of a consumer flow, you can break it down, you can write software to serve and plug those gaps, right? That's typical product building. Gaming has none of that. The only intent of a gaming product is solving for fun, right? That's the only job a good game designer has to do. You have to get and make people feel happy and fun, right? That's what games do. There is no concept of play to earn. People play for fun. People don't play to earn, right? And if you go, and which is where I don't believe in Web3 gaming, right? It starts with wrong fundamentals.
Yeah,
it started with play to earn. At least that's gone away, thankfully. Now people are still saying it's about being able to transact freely, and if I have an asset here, I put so much money into growing my player X in FIFA, I want to bring it somewhere else, right? I am a game designer of FIFA. Prash is a game designer of Madden. He does not want to F up his game design because he should be solving for your game asset. Again, it's the wrong premise, right?
Yeah.
So it's almost like anyone who talks about Web3 gaming with that lens, what they're missing out on is they're missing out on what is gaming, what is the nature of gaming, right? No game designer works like that, right? It's a game design is a very, very hard task. It's a very hard task, right? Now, even going back to tokenization and open asset, 2011-12 is when free to play became like a norm on gaming, right? Not even a norm. It came to the front, right? Before that, games used to be upfront pay, right? It took the entire industry of gaming, and when I say industry, I mean the businesses and designers and everyone, to hone their skill of saying, how do you design a free-to-play economy? Because for the first time, gamers had to think of designing economies, right? Earlier, before that, gaming used to be around designing just great games and great levels, right? That's it. You had to now start thinking design economies. It took 7 to 8 years to fine-tune that, right? Which was a centralized one-to-many transaction economy. Are game designers keen to do tokenized and open exchange stuff? Yes, they're more than keen to do it. Are they ready to do this at scale today? No, it will take good 6 to 7 years to again hone and fine-tune this new construct of economy design, because it's not in isolation. So in economy, the economy design, if you ask a game designer, he will tell you is core now to how they design a game, right? It's core of how they think of player progression. It is core to how they think of meta loops. It is core to how do they think of different flow states of a player during their level progression, right? You're adding a new complexity, wherein earlier I was a game maker, Prash and Raghu were players. They were only transacting with me, right? Now they're transacting with each other. Earlier, when it was only with me, I used to have deterministic prices for every asset or whatever you think of. And I pretty much knew how they will get burnt, right? I could almost I had a full control of how those assets will get burnt, how would new money come in, and new money was never coming into the game, right? It was these assets being used. The moment I open up peer-to-peer, I don't know how to do this. Like if you ask any seasoned game designer, he'll tell you, I don't know how to design this. It will take time to learn that. And which is where, Prashant, to your question, long answer, what I believe in is what probably a lot of good game designers have now reached the consensus on, right? They think we do want to bring in all of these goodness. We can't do this. So at one point, people start saying, take a current game and turn it into Web3.
Web3.
वो भी नहीं हो सकता है. That also can't happen, right? What and which now I have a huge hope. Now I'm super excited about Web3 gaming in that way. Is old game designers have now saying, if I have a good game, which is first nailed down the problem statement of being being fun, having its own retention loops, I will slowly induce and introduce Web3, right? And that slow is going to be, I'm going to take the base game, I'm going to create a meta layer on top for my super fans, right? For the hardcore fans. And gaming always has this curve where gaming businesses usually do not have similar retention curves as other products. They have longer retention with a fewer base, right? That's typically the construct of gaming. So you'll have maybe early double-digit, single-digit percentage of players who will be long-term retained, but who are deeply retained, right? So that is very different from, say, something like a Facebook or an Instagram, right? And they are saying that we'll create meta loops for them. So let's say if it's a battle royale game, I'll create a new sub game, right? Which is a very short light touch game, but which is actually about the asset, right? What happens if the battle royale characters become a card collection game loop around the battle royale, right? Which is much smaller loop, ownership based, and meant for the core fans, right? And once I've built this behavior of ownership with certain set of my user base, is when slowly I'll bring it back into the main game, right? I don't want to mess up my main game by doing this. This future of Web3 gaming, I'm super excited by, right? Because yes, there is merit. Like, and Raghu, to your question, like gameplay, to Web3, the entire thing is a gameplay. And which is where I keep telling, I don't know whether you guys have played this game called Wolf game. That's actually a Web3 native crypto game. You guys should play it. If you want to see a native crypto game, it is that, right? You actually have to buy everything in that game using your crypto ETH. And every aspect of the game is economics. You lose money, you farm money, you yield stuff. It's beautifully done, very well designed at least. It's maturing as a product. And yeah, that's the other future of Web3 game, which I'm super excited by. That one thing that Web3 games can do is take pure real money gaming games, right? Like games where you actually stake. And that's also been on games for historically forever, right? And turn them into new experiences, right? That's the other future of Web3 games I'm super excited by.
Just one edge case I wanted to chat about. People used to talk about blockchains being untamperable and open and fair and all that. So is there still a case for a blockchain-based random number generator for things like,
I agree. So see, blockchain, we all believe it's all about trust, right? But understand, you have to always be consumer backwards, right? If as consumers, I don't know why people think there is a huge trust deficit from consumers for everything, right? I'll give an example. Let's pick fantasy, right? Fantasy sports. And now, the job Dream 11 has done over the years, right, is primarily build trust with consumers.
Yes.
Right? Now, they've built that trust. No consumer or user on Dream 11 today bothers about saying that, hey, I want immutability. All of those things are ways to ensure trust. But the brand has built trust, right?
Yeah.
Brand is also a huge part of trust. Like when people say, at least in the Western world, Apple is a brand which has built trust, right? It has built trust. So trust can be built in multiple ways, right? As entrepreneurs and consumers, our job is to solve for problems and services, right? If someone can do it by building a brand itself, which is trusted, why do they need all this concept of immunity random. Your consumers don't care. Consumers want trust. They don't want a trust gap. So they want to trust. Like if you end up achieving that by a brand, it's as good.
I'm looking for Neil. Also, thank you. This is such a great callback to Web3 Normies episode 1, where I boldly went out without thinking of its repercussions, saying that Web3 gaming in its current form is dishonest. Okay, and the same exact reasons that you said. So, guys, whoever came at me with brickbats, please redirect them to Aakash as well. So that he may also feel a little bit of what I went through. Sorry, Prash, just had to put that in there. So that...
No, that's good. That's good. I think we were as one at that point as well. So I think this makes a lot of sense. I think this segues into like the next part of my, at least what I wanted to understand from you, right? So consumer journey is important. Game needs to be fun, right? And there are certain aspects of Web3 which we can do, but play to earn and all that is like, very fleeting. What about the overall stack, right? Now, people say, okay, Web3 game has to be like, entirely decentralized in terms of its storage, in terms of its rendering. To me, it feels like, I don't think, again, if you look at it from a consumer's lens, I don't think they would care as much where the rendering happens, where all these things happen, right? So,
Prash, anyone who tells you this, no, sorry for interjecting, ask them, no, you have been to be school, like, ask them, no. But बचपन में सबको क्या सिखाते जाके consumer study करो ना एक बार. Why don't people just go and talk to consumers, man? At least like they should ask, what do you want in a game? And people are like, I want a good game. And then
exactly
rendering to be on decentralized, they'll be like, WTF?
What is that?
If I had $1 for every time somebody came to me and said, you know how much time you spend on the game and the game gives you nothing back. It's time to take back what you deserve. And I'm just like, bro, it's given me so much entertainment. Why is that not quantifiable? I should give more.
The extension of that is like, oh, you know what? I was just chilling, having a good time with my friends, but then I got nothing in return. You can extend it to that as well.
Next time you and I grab a lunch or drink, I'm like, Prashant, you need to pay. Because we had a good time, we had good pay. So, and now we're going to tell the restaurant to pay. Both of us.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's even better. You are the centralized institute in between here. So what I was going to ask is,
by the way, just on Arsenal paying a little bit. We've been supporting Arsenal for so long. What has it given back to us?
Next time, everyone will be like, Arsenal, you need to pay. Because what? That is not how it works.
Anyways, point made. Prash, go for it.
So just continuing that point of view, right? So to you, when you say, Web3 games, there are certain aspects that you like, right? So across the stack, what do you think needs to happen for like Web3 game, right? To look more Web3 rather than, Web2? Or do you think it's a perpetual state of 2.5 as well?
I think, Prashant, now we are at a point where we should move away from saying Web 2, 2.5 or 3, and we should say and take a step down, double click and say, what do we want, right? What are the goodness that you want to bring to the business of gaming or gaming products, right? I do think there is a lot of merit to bringing the goodness of open economies, right? Though that should happen. And should that economy be on-chain, immutable? Should be, because not every game can build trust so easily with players, right? Building trust as a brand takes a lot of time, right?
Yeah.
So that can be done and should be done. And when I say should, I think it's almost what Web3 lacks is no one needs to do it, right? What Web3 lacks is good product management to be doing it. Because Web3, so crypto and blockchain have already done the hard part. They've democratized the tools that you need, have already been democratized enough for anyone to say that, hey, if I want to use open ledgers, immutable pieces, like all of these to establish trust, I have the tool set ready. I don't need to reinvent it, right? A brand needs to get reinvented every time. So if you have to go down the brand part to get trust, every time you'll have to create a brand, right? What Web3 has done, it has given you this arsenal wherein it's saying trust you can establish just by doing this. And it's a level playing field, everyone can do it, right?
Yeah.
Now, which in my view should ideally improve the economics of games, right? Because building a brand requires a lot of investment, right? And now if you're a new game maker, you could use this, the landscape of blockchain, to build trust without having to spend any brand. That's a great leverage. It's a huge leverage. I don't come across founders who think of it that way, right? Who come and say that, hey, this is what I'm trying to solve for. Trust wala gap fill karne ke liye, I'll use this. I'll build a great gaming product, and I will unlock open economy. Someone who just goes at it with that simplicity, you will see the first Web3 game come out, which will have millions of users for real, right? I think this is what is missing right now, that no one is taking a first principle of view of what you want to do. So I don't think it's 2.5 or 3. You have to build a good game and stick to that. And Web3 is a great leverage. It can be a super good leverage. Like, I'll give you another example of a great leverage. If you have this, and you have tokenized, and you have asset ownership, I don't give two hoots about assets moving from one game to the other for a cross publisher. The toughest part in gaming business is actually every game has a shelf life, right? It does decay. So good to great games would have shelf life of 3 to 4 years. Goodish games would have shelf life of 1 to 2 years. Mediocre games will have a shelf life of 6 months to 12 months, right? That's the nature of gaming. And then obviously there are legendary games which are infinite shelf life, right? Those are far and few. That's almost like catching lightning in a bottle. It just happens out of serendipity. There is no science to it. Now, that means as a gaming publisher or a game maker, you have to keep making games, right? Every game that you make, you have to go again run acquisition, retention. Most of the games today by nature are multiplayer. Multiplayer is almost a core part of gaming now. So you also need to get enough amount of concurrency in a game when you launch a new game for the game to become sticky. It's like repeated problems. We are in a world where IDFAs have been deprecated thanks to Apple, right? And even Google will follow suit very soon. Performance marketing has become super difficult. CAC to LTV has become super difficult for the business of gaming. Again, if someone took a first principle view and said, asset ownership and transferability is actually my way to cross-sell and move people within my games, right? Saying, when I launch my game 1, I will create a loop which I have trust. So people will value this asset. People will trust this asset. And then I'm going to transfer this asset to my next title, to my next title, to my next title. Solve for my business of saying that I don't have to again break my back acquiring people, right? I think these are the things that if we see happen, and if people stop talking and like just talking in saying that Web 2, Web 3, render on chain and all of that, if people went after these simpler problems, the first Web 3 game and what most people keep saying Web 3 gaming is the beachhead to billion users, it might just happen much faster.
Yeah. Do you also see that as infrastructure matures, say decentralized storage, decentralized compute, decentralized rendering, do you feel like game developers also have the added advantage of offering their game to the customers at a lower price point? Do you see that being or increasing margins?
Away from priced games decade back, no? I'm saying priced games is a construct we moved away from more than a decade back.
Right. No, but the in-game assets that you're selling could be cheaper for the same kind of comparative Web 2.
There is no
doesn't matter there.
There is no COGS. This is not a business where you have a P&L for an asset saying that a cost of goods sold. It's not like that.
No, there's a lot of startups that come to us right now that say that hey,
they probably have never run a business of gaming. That's why they think of it.
Not game companies. So these guys are so Udacity, Coursera, Udemy, all of these guys have tons of certificate data that's just sitting on their servers. Moving that to IPFS is a direct, cost advantage for them.
Yeah, see, I think it's a cost advantage. Now how big a cost advantage is the question mark.
Yes.
Right?
The larger the scale, the bigger it gets. Right?
No, so it's not just function of scale, right? So compute and storage, and so if you break down the internet and 3 pillars of it, right? It's compute, storage, bandwidth, right?
Yes.
3 things make up internet. Now, compute and storage so it's compute, cross storage, cross bandwidth is actually roughly the equation of cost, right? When you think of internal cost of running an internet company. If your bandwidth is low, so if your throughput and the bandwidth needed is low, you will be surprised that's your biggest force multiplier on compute and storage, right? So yes, is a business like Hotstar or Netflix going to benefit dramatically if compute and storage costs are low? Yes, right. Those businesses have a real dent, a non-incremental dent in their business cost if these costs go down, right? But can bandwidth or that throughput or latency be solved by Web3? No, Web3 infra can't, right? It just can't. No, there is no way you can solve for that, right? To the extent that the ideal solution for solving this is actually me putting edge compute and storage wherever I want to serve the customer, right? Now, can that super ambitious Web3 infra solve for it? Yes, right. Now, if you can take decentralized compute and storage to a point where it is effectively going to behave like being on the edge for every consumer who have to serve, then it's a different question, right? Anything in between won't serve the purpose.
Got it.
Anything in between won't serve the purpose.
A really good perspective.
Raghu, it's also very similar to what Sai was also mentioning, you know, from a metaverse perspective. I think it's like a pretty similar take even he had.
Yeah, that your iPhone today has really powerful hardware. Can that be used into this? That is a promise that Web3 can go after for sure. Really interesting.
No, I mean, I was saying there are a lot of offshoots of this discussion we can go into, but I think we should come to the second big buzzword that we wanted to discuss, right? Which is AI, right? And yeah, I don't really know where to start on this, okay? But I'll just say this, okay? 6 months, no, before like 2022 and before, right? AI still felt very much like, okay, there's a lot happening, but you know, there is much more of like a promise that is not being met, right? And suddenly in the last 3 to 6 months, it feels like AI's moment is here, and it's really here, right? With GPT, Auto GPT, Bard, everything that's coming on, right? So I think that is my view, right? And I think it pretty much resonates with everyone right now. So Aakash, so from your perspective, right? How do you did you see this wave coming? And you know, at like a very high level, where do you think this is going, and like what all is it going to disrupt that people may not even have thought about yet, or may not even be ready for?
Wow, such a loaded question. But yeah, I don't think anyone can see these things coming, right? You can have a sense of that it is around the corner, right? I think for a lot of us, there was a sense that it is around the corner. So that was there. But if anyone tells you they saw it coming, they're lying, right? You can never see that happen. Like if you couldn't technology see it coming, you would be like a gazillionaire, right? Like I don't know if you could be so sharp about it. So I think around the corner, it always felt like, because AI, people forget that this is probably the 6th hype cycle of AI, right? So as early as post World War II era to now, anyone who has been in comp science or been obsessed about computers, for them, this concept of AI or a machine being able to do what it does on its own has always existed, right? So the amount of research and effort that has gone behind this is actually that old, right? And over years, it just kept on changing. A lot of basics started happening, right? Compute cost, unlock, all of that started happening. It moved from being in research to actually being in enterprise, right? It used to be a very research and academia thing, but in early 2010s, it started moving into the world of, let's say, enterprise, right? Like if I was to ask you, what's the biggest AI company that you know of today? What would it be?
Oh, ChatGPT probably,
The
or
biggest AI
DeepMind.
the biggest AI company that you know of today is actually Facebook and ByteDance, right? Uh,
Mm,
ByteDance has been doing AI forever,
yep,
right? So,
yep.
early 2010s, it started moving to enterprise. AI was always part of recommendation systems, right? Netflix has been so AI ML, however you want to use those words,
Mm,
it has been there. It was just brewing, slowly, slowly. Why did it surprise you that in a world where people used to worry about that is Facebook listening to me, right, and showing me ads about what I talk, and they do not, and they are so precise in being able to get that, right?
mm,
uh, why would you think that AI was already not there? So it was already brewing, right? I think Chat GPT did two things. So a it brought to product state the transformer approach to doing AI, right? Before that, before 2015, so 2017 is when the Google team wrote that attention is everything paper, which was more about transformers. 2015, a Microsoft team wrote the research paper, which was a precursor to transformers. Um, Before that, even the academia and research used to be very split on saying should we go down the RN route or should we go down the transformer route? What's the right way to solve for this? Uh, 2017 sort of brought convergence onto the efforts being put all across, being on a transformer like approach, which is when OpenAI also just took a shot at it and said that we're going to go with millions of dollars behind it, which research and academia cannot, right? They cannot do that. And hence, ChatGPT is a emergence of a lot of things which just fell in place. And then it had this aha moment, right? Wherein you just launched it to the world. We had all seen Siri, Alexa, and all of those as natural language processing bots. And then you had ChatGPT, right? And it just blew up, right? Now, this was not the only thing which happened. Stability was anyway working on stable diffusion, right? Mid-journey was also happening. And I think very recently, Sam at some event or something mentioned, right? Like the intuition piece. Can you be so intuitive about it? The intuition piece forever in the world used to be, and Sam says that AI would have dislodged basic jobs like factory and all. Automation in factory was supposed to be the first thing.
mm.
Solving for coding was supposed to be the second thing, but potentially the second far out thing. And solving for creative would have been the last, right?
Almost the
It has
opposite now.
played out the other way around.
Yeah.
No, the AI thing, I think anyone in engineering itself, we used to learn fuzzy logic and neural networks, and fuzzy logic is in our washing machines right now to figure out what the right wash mode is for clothes, right? Like, so I feel like it's one of those things that we wish crypto and blockchain was, which is ubiquitous, right? When it
Yep.
comes into place, you don't even know that it is there. And I'm playing
Yep.
against the computer on any game. It's
It's
essentially
already there.
right, and a very good AI at that, especially with the new games. I've still yet to win a game in legendary mode on FIFA.
I
It's
know you can't. You will not.
oh, how, man? It's like, so anyways, you get the point. I feel like it's one of those things that when you see some sort of product market fit, it just embeds itself into all our application stacks without us actually even knowing about it. Our virtual assistants right now, just the conversationality that, say, something like Google's assistant has, it seems to be there. The question that I do want to ask you, Akash, is that who wins in AI? I think you kind of alluded to Nvidia in the beginning, but for all the AI software level developers who are building companies around things that are AI powered, do they really win? Because you may see the most wonderful thing that somebody has launched using AI, and a week later, 5 other people have launched it because these language your LLMs are completely open sourced right now.
No,
And
so I agree. I think it is slightly anxiety inducing for anyone to think, right? Especially if you're a entrepreneur, to say that, hey, who wins? It is moving so fast, and it is actually moving so fast, right? A lot of people say it is moving fast. Like last 6 months, my life has been pretty bad state because I have to spend almost 6-7 hours a day just to keep up, right? And it is moving maniacally fast. Like I have not seen anything move this fast. Like if you actually
Mm.
go to the trenches and think of what's happening in research, academia, like yes, day before yesterday, I posted on an internal group that someone has now done a RNN approach to transformers, which is turning out to be far superior. Dude, this is like 6 months in, and like now we are back. I thought academia, like everyone had decided transformers is the way to go. So it is crazy. Now, in all of this anxiety, where one might think that anyone can now do anything, right? You
Hmm.
do something, you'll have six more. Again, you can't forget the basics, right? Uh, if you think of what who you want to solve for, right? So let's pick a very simple thing. Let's say text to audio, right? Now today text to audio is open source. Anyone could do it. Anyone can start doing it, playing around with it, tinkering with it. Now text to audio for me as a casual user for some small casual use case, I'll happily use open source. Great, fine, right? I don't need production grade. Now take one step back, text to audio for someone, let's use a marketer or a brand which wants to now use text to audio or audio to audio via text transcription to say to localize their ads, right? I made an ad in English, I want to now localize it in Hindi, Tamil, Telugu, right? Because that's always better. I would need more. I would need the quality gap, right? Shrinks. I can't work with the open source, right? It's great, but this their need would be slightly more complex. So they will start needing tools which actually solve for using AI, but then because AI output is not going to be 100%, saying that hey, how do I solve for pitch and emotion and accuracy, right? How do I solve for those things? And someone will have to then build the software which allows you to do that, right? So anyone who goes after that problem statement, that's the difference, right? So you'll have hundreds here on the open source side, casual use case side. For this marketers use case, probably you'll have 4 5, right? Uh, Take a step further back. Let's go movies. They can't even go down. Even for them, this doesn't work, right? They need actual deep dubbing, right? They need dubbing, which is because an ad. Think about it. An ad is typically 30 seconds, 20 seconds, right? So all the slips and misses are not so comprehensible to an end consumer. A movie is a 90-minute, 120-minute phenomenon, right? Much more deeper. Many a times is going to be, where people are cued in, high attention. The problem statement is different, right?
Right.
There will be a different company which is not just going to use this, they're going to solve the harder problem. So the short answer is base AI, open source or closed source, will keep maturing. It'll keep growing on its own. Itself will keep becoming more powerful. Will it be powerful for every use case? I don't think so. It would be powerful as a base. Then you'll have to do what I like to call scaffolding, right? It's almost like you'll have to do stuff on top of it to make it ready for that deeper use case. And everyone who's going to solve for those things, they'll keep building good businesses.
Got it. But even in the case of, say, new language models for Tamil or Telugu, and for use cases like movies, isn't that also kind of skewed towards the person with the largest data set to be able to build the most accurate model for it, right? Like,
No. So that's what I'm saying. It's not necessarily model, right?
Hmm.
It's not necessarily about just the model. So let me make it. So I think it's more a question of human in the loop plus model, right?
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And because you now have a human in the loop plus a model, right? The way you design these workflows changes. Because earlier you were designing workflows purely for humans only. Now you have to design workflows for human in the loop with a model, right? And a simplified example of this would be you could go and hit up ChatGPT today and ask it to write code for you. It can, right?
Yeah.
And I've been documenting these experiments, and once I've done all of them across multiple languages, multiple frameworks, I'll even put it out. You can go and do it. It will write a piece of code. Now, but if you are not someone who knows how to code, you will not be able to find gaps in that, right?
Yeah.
When I ask it to write a piece of code, let's say I prompt it to say, hey, write a Flask app for doing ABC, list down the steps and do it, right? And it does it. I scan and read the code and say, you haven't included a method to do this. And then everybody will say, oh, sorry, I missed it. Here is the code for that. Then I would have to prompt it and tell him, oh, but you're still forgetting that there would be a GET request which will be happening at this point of time, which is in this part of the code. And this is conflicting. Oh, sorry, let me correct that, right? So this is human in the loop, right? So some same piece of code which would have taken me, let's say, 10 hours to write. Now I can write it in 1 hour.
Right.
And AI is doing it for me. I'm not even writing code at all, right? But you need that human in the loop, right? So, and this is for something, and imagine if you think of the complexity of AI, right? You can plot the complexity of what problems AI can address on like a 2x2, right? You have syntax and grammar, right? Now, anything which has high syntax, high grammar, I would assume AI will get 200% of that. So this coding example that I took, high probability in less than the next 1 year, AI will get to a point where I won't have to do this. What I was telling you, you have to tell and do this, right? Because programming languages are hard syntax and grammar, right? So wahan tak pahunch jayega. Then it is going to be as good as, it's like garbage in, garbage out, is going to be as good as the prompt that you give it, right? So as long as I'm able to give it the right prompt, right, it will be able to write precise code. Less than a year, right? Anything which is on the other parts of the quadrant of grammar and syntax, I don't think AI gets 200%, right? You will always require that human in the loop. And by the way, even I'm saying, even when it gets to 100%, you need a human in the loop who tells it what to do, right? It is the output is as good as the input of what you want from it, right? So
that's prompt engineering guys. The number of prompt engineering courses that I've seen on Twitter is not even funny, but now I see that it's actually pretty useful. People need it at some point when AI achieves.
When I say the input you give it, so I think prompt engineering, by the way, is a transitionary thing. That's my view. When I say what, the what is more about, see, a prompt engineer can't solve for saying what are the steps. See, it's almost like when you decide to write a new piece of software, the top-down design approach of software is someone has to think in their head, right? These are the building blocks. These are the components. This is how I'm going to plug. This is how I'm going to do the plumbing, right? As long as you're able to do that, AI will do the rest of it. So I think prompt engineering is a very transitionary thing, right? Prompt engineering is today there because AI is not 100% on grammar syntax. The day AI gets to 100% grammar syntax on programming, prompt engineering won't be needed.
Yeah.
So, and do you think that's just a year away to get to that level of proficiency?
On coding, I would say less than a year.
Interesting. Okay. See, so
does this mean developer salaries go down?
Yeah, I don't know, right? See, so now can this be done? Can AI do this to solve for harder problems, right? Okay, so pure application software, light touch stuff, yeah, that goes down. I'm sorry, like there's no fighting it, right? That job is going to get trivialized, right? Would the job of saying that, hey, how do I write a low latency code or how do I do architecture, that go away? No, that will not go away, right? Because those are very different skill sets, which is like a very, but again, 50% of the world is still in that soft and easy part. That is going to have a tough time, right? But for engineers, right, who are not just coders, do they go away? No, they actually become, for them, it's a superpower, right? For them, it is like a augmentation thing. They'll start doing work at multiple fold of productivity, right? Because they hate writing trivial code, right? And you've solved that problem for them. So I would assume But which is where the answer lies, right? So let's say if this gets dislodged, this simple software stuff gets like, I am hopeful that if a smaller set of people are getting augmented with a superpower, they would create newer avenues, right? Where again things can be used, the same people can be used. So I think this is the nature of that creative destruction phenomena, right? Like it's going to destroy first, and then it's going to create. Let's just hope that the time lag is not too much between the two. But I don't worry about that so much.
That's awesome.
I just feel, governments are also very slow in comprehending what's happening on the AI side, because I think there need to be some, at least in my mind, there has to be like a lot more regulatory intervention in terms of like how AI proliferates, right, across industries, and not just for like coding and like loss of jobs, but also in distortion of truth.
I agree, but I disagree that it is doable. I disagree that it is doable because, see, regulation always plays a catch-up game, right? Especially with tech, it has just been playing a catch-up game. And my worry is with AI, that catch-up game is near impossible for regulation. Like, how do you catch up with something which, from the day you decide to regulate, and by the time you'll have your first meeting to regulate, would have become something else?
AI regulators. That's the answer.
Yeah. and I think that's why probably Elon even came up with that petition of like slowing down work on AI, right? Because
which is not from I don't think anyone who has gone to that school of thought, and it's not just Elon, many people, right, have gone to that part. I don't think they're coming from it's a school of thought, right? This is where the world now starts moving to, which school of thought do you belong to, right? I think that's a very cautionary school of thought. And I sort of am somewhere in the middle, where I do subscribe also that it is actually scary that the pace at which it is going.
Yeah.
Maybe that is the answer, right? You don't know, right?
Yeah.
However, I would always want to believe, to that earlier example that I gave of creative destruction, that it will just find its answer on its own. It's okay, right? It will find its answer. So I don't think there's a wrong or right answer to it. I'm more hopeful and optimistic about this, but I do also think that the other school of thought is somewhat right.
And where do you I have to ask this now, right? See, Web3 is this is what we all probably, at least Raghu and I, thought will become a lot more ubiquitous than what it is right now. And AI has like just gone through the roof in terms of how common it has become, right, in the last 3 to 6 months, even though its impact has been felt for much longer. Do you see areas where AI and crypto intersect? To me, at least, the immutability of blockchain in terms of like this distortion of truth, right, makes a lot of sense over there. But are there like any specific areas that you are particularly focused on, or you can think of?
Just to add to that, Aakash, before he does it, I think it kind of comes back to the topic of NVIDIA, right? Will NVIDIA be able to match GPU demand that is required for AI in the case that it becomes more used than what it is right now? Because it's the common example that people use for metaverses as well. If I have to now render everything in 3D, unless it's done at the edge at scale, I don't think the compute exists or storage exists for doing that at mass adoption level. So just to layer Prash's question, does the intersection of AI and Web3 come in at the absolute base distributed compute and storage level?
Got it. I think the identity one or immutability one is 100% given, right? That I think I would rather go on record and say, maybe even before gaming becomes the beachhead of taking blockchain and Web3 billion planet scale, I would be surprised if it is actually not solving for identity, right? Because in a world where you're going to have so much synthetic content being created, in a world where, and I some of my posts have written, it's a world of infinite content, right? Like we are moving into that world now. Infinite content, infinite synthetic content, lots of deepfakes, lots of things. And I think a few days back, there was that example of like a blip in the indexes on the Pentagon attack, sort of a misinformation, right? I think maybe that is going to be the first use case where immutability of blockchain becomes large scale use case, right? Way before anything else, right? Because this is, and I'll tell you why I think it is needed and why it would very soon. Because the people who are at loss with misinformation or deepfakes, they are the ones who would want to plug it, not the bad actors, right? Now, you could say that, put it on generation, that every platform will start saying that synthetic one is watermarked or something. But Raghu was saying everything's open source. You can't plug it at the generation point, right? What you can plug it at the generation point for people who are generating the real stuff. So it's almost like saying that, hey, if I was a big tech journalist or something, anything I write, imagine if everything I write was actually written on mirror.xyz, right? And that's it. That's the single source of truth of whatever I have written. And it is immutable. It is, and because it's on chain, it's there. Now, anyone who is masquerading or doing synthetic or doing anything on top of it, right? If I plug it into all top of funnel platforms to say that, hey, this is the stamp of my work, right? If any identity is linked to me, work would be here, and that is it. I think some solution of that nature will be needed very, very soon. Very, very soon means like very soon, right? And that's your immutable and blockchain going.
Does it make money? Does it make money? I have to ask.
Yeah. I think in this world, this whole NFTs, immutable, mirror approach, we will find ways how it'll make money. It will.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, right? Like, I feel like this is most of the things that don't make money off the bat, right? The shared, distributed, decentralized economies actually make sense for them. The whole public good, as they call it, right? This is where it actually makes sense for it to have a shared and open economy, where people speculate on its value as opposed to the money that it would actually make. The money would be built on top of these infrastructures, but I think that Web3 actually allows for those open source projects to be sustainable and distributed.
Actually, could be, but I look at it at much simpler analogies, right? I think the simpler analogy, why I think again NFTs could, even before gaming or anything, could be the big one for blockchain and constructs of blockchain going mainstream. Take a step back, right? When we started seeing industry machine produced goods, why do you think a lot of people still want to buy the handmade stuff, right? Now, if you take that analogy and stretch it out, the moment the world of content moves to a lot of synthetic, right, all of a sudden you probably will see again a move shift back to people saying that, hey, this is not synthetic, right? And one of the easiest marks of that not synthetic is potentially going to be done via the NFT route, right? So I think this one I'm actually super excited about, that because this is a real use case. This is not an outside-in use case. This is a problem seeking a solution.
Yes.
Right? It's not a solution seeking a problem, which used to be the pain point of Web3, right?
It is what it is, man. But Aakash, the second question, right? Like
so the second part, which is the decentralized compute piece, right? Is it needed? Yes, but not to as great extent. Again, I think if you follow, models are becoming smaller. You have something called as low rank adaptation, which is continuously shrinking and getting you the same output. And so, but again, it goes through cycles. You'll find newer need for outputs. Models will expand everything. So yes and no, not as acutely, but it would be needed. That you need more compute and everything on the edge. Is there a potential for someone? I think as of today, the largest on-edge compute storage and everything is basically your iOS devices. They actually pretty much, the latest ones even have a dedicated silicon just for doing that. So I think it's already there. Wishful thinking. If you talk to people who are building in AI, they would say getting compute right now is a big problem, right? For me to get like a Edge 1000 cluster or something just doesn't exist, right? Crazy demand. Ambitious thought. Someone should try and take a shot at building like the helium for the compute, saying that let me take so where helium failed was again trying to solve a wrong problem. But if someone goes out and says, let me take every single plugged in Mac and iOS device in the world and turn it into an edge compute cloud, I don't know. It probably will solve some problems. A lot of small scale developers could just start using that and plugging that and building apps on that.
Yeah, could work.
But yeah, that's the short answer.
Yeah.
It's needed.
But
we
not,
see again
not
in,
as much as just to kind of reiterate that point.
Yeah.
But not as much as the Filecoin and RV maxis would have you believe.
I don't know if that much. Not that acute a problem.
Got it.
See, also, I think Raghu. Also, the other way of looking at this is, this is to some extent a problem, right? But the way Web3 approaches a lot of these problems is that it very quickly becomes all about the incentive layer. Okay. And then no one, like a lot of people, then you ask like 100 people in Web3 about Filecoin. I think 90% of them will not know that what it is supposed to be doing underneath the file token, right? Yeah. And I think that's a fundamental problem with Web3, because if you even look at the limitations on compute created by NVIDIA, right, and also within AI today, there is so much free capacity, right? And I think the problem is there that people are trying to solve, but it always gets into this economic loop, which just seems to attract more speculators than the developers or the real problem solvers.
You guys want a fun drinking game? The next
on or off the show?
No, on the show only. Next Web3 meetup that you go to, take a shot every time someone says incentive. I promise you a fun night.
Nice.
Dude, I already think I have a drinking problem. I don't want to be doing it.
Dude, we should catch up, man. We've been talking about drinking for a really long time, but it's never happened. But on that nice note, Aakash, thank you for joining us and becoming an honorary normie. I think it was a fun episode for us to demystify a lot of the buzzwords that we hear around. So it was a pleasure for me, and I think I speak for Prash as well when I say it. We hope to have you again on the show at some point. But for now, Prash, if you have nothing else to say, signing off.
Nothing else. Thanks a lot, Aakash.
Yes, great, and see you guys soon, man. It's super fun doing this. I think I hadn't caught up with the both of you in a very long time. So let's figure out whenever we are grabbing drinks sometime in real life.
Done.